Welcome and thank you for tuning in to the Sean Inspires podcast. I am Sean Allen, your podcast host and life coach. I am excited because today I have an amazing leader in the finance world. He is sitting in with us today. I'm not sure if he's in Carolina or where he's located, but he is on the air with us today live. And so we are going to have a great segment. So Robert, welcome to the Sean Inspires podcast.
Sean, thank you for having me. I always enjoy listening to your podcast, so it's a pleasure to be on.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to go ahead and just give the audience a little bit of information about who you are and all of the great things that you have done and what you're doing now. So we have here Robert. He is currently the Senior Vice President and Chief Financial Officer of Lifecycle Engineering. As CFO, he is responsible for all financial operations of the company, as well as accounting, contracts, purchasing, process automation, and IT. Prior to LCE, Robert served as VP of Finance at Gailey and Lord and CFO of the Coastal Logistics Group, as well as financial management positions within Lockheed Martin, Hormel Foods, and Hilton Hotels. Robert has an undergraduate degree in finance and an MBA from Kennesaw State University, as well as a Master's of Accounting and Financial Management from DeVry. Robert is also a certified public accountant, certified Prosy change management professional, and a certified Six Sigma Green Belt. Robert's volunteer activities include serving as a member of the Board of Trustees for the Educational Foundation for Women in Accounting and serving as an advisor to the Board of Directors for the South Carolina Federal Credit Union. Robert is also the president and founder of the Global Cfo Council. The purpose of the Global Cfo Council is to provide an educational and networking forum for senior financial executives to share best practices, to discuss current financial issues, and to learn about current topics related to the performance of their jobs. Currently, there are over 1,500 members in 32 countries. Robert, that is absolutely awesome. You've done some great and amazing things. So if you could tell us in your own words just a little bit about yourself before we go into the segment.
Sure. Well, thank you. And in hearing that, I realized that is unnecessarily long, and I need to edit that. I think an easier way to say it is I'm an accountant by profession and a family man. I'm married with two kids, two awesome kids and wife. I do live in the Carolinas currently, Sean, but have also lived in Georgia and loved it, where I think you are. And
yes, I am.
I just found out when I was young, one of the things I was good at was basic math, and you can get paid a fair wage if you understand basic math by being an accountant. So that's been my career path.
And let's talk a little bit about that. You are a leader, you are an accountant, you're a CFO of an amazing organization. I've done some research on Lifecycle, and you guys are doing some amazing things here. And so tell me a little bit about that. Did you always have an interest in the realm of finance and navigating your path toward leadership, specifically as a chief financial officer? I know for myself, my career path leading into purpose, it was a winding path. It wasn't a straight paved path. So if you could unpack that for the audience that's listening in today.
John, I think your note is accurate. And I think that's important for people. And something I tell young people is that often the path isn't straight. It seems straight if you just look at the highlight reels that are on social media, but real life is sometimes it's left, sometimes it's right, it's dirt, it's a rocky path that's swimming through the water, and then it's back on the pavement. So I've been on a similar path, but no, I didn't think accounting and being a CFO of a company was going to be the path. I liked three things when I was young. I liked tennis, and I liked theater, and I liked math. And I was average at all of those, and you can't make any money being average at tennis or theater. And I thought, well, you can still make a decent amount of money being average at math. So I ended up there just by default.
Wow. And it seemed like by default, it has taken you to such amazing heights. and you're doing so many great things in that world. So, I see here that you have led so many different organizations and currently leading an organization. And if you could share with us, what was your inspiration for starting Life Cycle? What was the fire that pushed you into creating that?
Well, I am I'm a member of a team at Life Cycle Engineering. It's an engineering firm headquartered in South Carolina. We've got all offices all over the U.S. and projects all over the globe. It's a great group. I'm happy to be a part of it. And as I describe what the CFO or Chief Financial Officer does is we turn revenue into profit. And we help our internal customers, those are the sales and growth leaders and the operations teams of a company. We help them do their job to the best of their ability. And I've enjoyed that path. I like helping companies. I find a lot of companies can make revenue. They can close the deal. They can have sales, but not a lot of companies can make a profit and do that efficiently. So I've enjoyed that role. I think that's an important part of what the CFO does is being an internal consultant and helping an entrepreneur or helping a president and CEO on that journey. And I love it. I love my job and I love accounting. And a lot of people hate it, so they have to pay you more to do it. So it's great.
And I'm sure having the love and passion, because I can hear it and feel it in your voice, the love and passion for what it is you do as an accountant and a chief financial officer makes the work a little bit easier for you. So, we've been in this time wave now of the great resignation, but also so many people stepping into the calling and the purpose of entrepreneurship. And you mentioned something very key that is important in building a business and starting up a business. And one of the key things is being able to, one, generate revenue, but most importantly, once you generate that revenue, how you turn that revenue into profit. So what is some wisdom you could share for the listening audience of those that have stepped into entrepreneurship in that regard of what are some of the key things that they really should position themselves for in regards to that area of their finances as an entrepreneur?
I break it down in a few things, and the overall umbrella I'd start with is some things that Sean, I think you talk about a lot, is in that pursuit or early on in the journey as an entrepreneur. I think it's important to have a passion and be passionate about what you're doing and be authentic. Your customers are going to see right through you, and if you don't have that, you don't have a cornerstone or foundation. Secondly, I think you need to understand that you just need to move forward. Even if you're failing forward because you're taking action steps. And Sean, I don't know if you disagree, but I find a lot of entrepreneurs, they often have ideas, but they lack action. They have passion, but they lack the ability to have a plan, then execute. They're so concerned about left or right or the color of paint or the logo, and they don't have action steps towards serving the customer. So that's just a foundational first piece. And I hear you talk about that a lot, but I just wanted to start with that. I think being authentic, having passion, failing forward, and focusing on action steps are a key first part. If you don't have that, I don't think you have anything.
Absolutely. I do agree. To answer that question, I do agree. It's very important. And I believe that it helps you to navigate in that entrepreneurship. It helps you navigate your course a little bit differently, especially if, as an entrepreneur, for those that are listening in the audience, if you want longevity and long-term success as a leader.
I'd just to add to that, Sean, because it was such a good question and I want to unpack that a little bit, is that once you just have that, whether you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, I think, and I like alliteration, so I broke this down into E's. I think that to further your career and your business, your career as an entrepreneur, and I think if someone has an entrepreneurial mindset within a larger organization is an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, I think you have to consider your education, your experience, and your exposure. And within education, as a first step, whether you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, I think it's absolutely critical to have a foundation of education in the industry in which you hope to serve. If you want to own a mobile car wash, you should be trained in that area. There are certifications you can pursue. There's training in that area. Or if you want to be a nurse or a doctor, pursuing a trade school or education, I think is absolutely critical. And then to have continuous learning along the way by listening to podcasts like Sean here, webinars and seminars. I think education, the first E, is absolutely critical. And then experience. I think for entrepreneurs that I talk to, I because I'm getting, you look pretty young there with an excellent head of hair. I'm bald and old, and I've got 45. A lot of second. I talk to 45. A lot of. You look 35. I talk to a lot of people who are maybe second career, and very recently had a conversation with somebody who's convinced they want to open a franchise of a major brand of a food restaurant, which is great. I like going to this restaurant. But I was like, oh, did you work your way through college in that industry or for that franchise? And they're like, no, I've never worked in food and beverage ever. And I was like, well, I mean, that's a really expensive investment of, we're talking $500,000. It might be a good idea to apprentice or to, if you want to quit your job, great. Or maybe just on the weekends, you could go work for even within the industry. And I think they thought it was beneath them to work in the store or work part-time. But I just think it was like an apprenticeship that you would get paid for. It's no greater education to the work for the franchise, unbeknownst to a franchise owner, and learn what it is really like to run that enterprise before spending $500,000. And whether, again, it's somebody who wants to start a mobile car wash, or they want to buy a $1 million or $2 million McDonald's franchise, or start their own business to business consulting company, apprentice under someone, gain some experience. Or let's say you're an entrepreneur, how this might apply. If you're young and you work in a firm and you want to grow, and right now you're just a manager, but you have aspirations to be the CEO, join the industry or trade association board that your company is a member of. They are actively looking for new volunteers, and you could become a very senior person within the industry or trade association board at a very young age. You could be a member and learn governance and have experience and new mentors, and you would both be serving your industry while growing. And if you're a more senior person in your career, I think being a mentor and finding people that are working their way up the industry, whether you own a business or you work within a company, is a great way to learn. You're giving back by mentoring to others, but you will also learn so much by these young, high potential people who have this desire to grow. So that's education and experience. And then last, exposure. I think that something for the entrepreneur is that to be exposure, out there within the industry, in addition to the trade associations, is to try to be a visible expert within your industry. Either host a podcast or speak on podcasts like Sean's, write in industry of publications, or consider speaking at a trade association. I think education, experience, and exposure are great ways to grow and to also give back.
That's amazing. And it's interesting that you mentioned exposure and volunteering. You're plugged in and you're in sync with where I'm going with my next question. How important is it for entrepreneurs to join boards in their community at the early phases of them being a new business? So you're on point, Robert. You're on point.
I think it's critical. I think both for what you will give and what you will receive. If you're volunteering your time, the organizations in your area need you, whether it's a civic organization, community organization, religious organization in your immediate community. If you're if your target customer is in a pretty close-knit target regional area, let's say Atlanta, Metro Atlanta, if you were to join the civic community and religious organizations of whatever your faith is in that community, you're giving back to those, you're serving to those in which you seek to be a customer. You're going to learn so much about that community. And then also you'll have some influence in a positive way that may also help your business. And then lastly, you're going to learn from people that have been in that community longer than you, and in those civic and community organizations, religious organizations longer than you. And by natural, just inherent